So we are done with strings in Python. Now we'll head on to data structures in Python. So till now we've only stored a singular value in a variable. But many a times when we are dealing with huge amounts of data, we'd have to store multiple elements into a singular data structure. So that is where we will have this collection of variables. So we've got these different collections of variables which are tuple, list, dictionary, and set. And these form the most important part of our tuple. One is the name of this, and you will just give in round braces and then you'll give in a bunch of elements. So as you see, alright, so we are done with strings in Python. Now we'll head on to data structures in Python. So till now we've only stored a singular value in a variable. But many a times when we are dealing with huge amounts of data, we'd have to store multiple elements into a singular data structure. So that is where we will have this collection of variables. So we've got these different collections of variables which are tuple, list, dictionary, and set. And these form the most important part of our Python programming. So let's start with the first one, which is a tuple. So as it is stated over here, tuple is basically an ordered collection of elements enclosed within round braces, and tuples are immutable. Now, what do I mean when I say tuples are immutable? So once you create a tuple, you can't change the value which is present inside the tuple, right? And this is how you can create a tuple. So first you will give in a name to the tuple. So tuple1 is the name of this. And you will just give in round braces and then you'll give in a bunch of elements. So as you see, this tuple has elements of different data type over here. So this is a numeric one, this is a character one, and then this is a boolean one, right? So a tuple is basically a heterogeneous mixture of different elements, and this is a ordered collection of all of those different heterogeneous elements. And also once you create a tuple, you cannot go ahead and change the tuple. So let's go to Jupyter Notebook and create a first tuple. So I'll just use hash over here and add in a comment which is tuple. Now I will go ahead and create my first tuple. I'll type in tuple1. I'll give in round braces over here. I'll type 1, A, and then I'll give in a boolean value which is true. After this, I'll again give a numeric value and then I'll again give a character value. And then I'll follow it up with a boolean value again, which is false. I'll click on run. Now let me also print in tuple1 over here. So this is our tuple. Now just to verify this is actually a tuple, I'll check the type of it. So inside this type method, I will pass in this tuple1, and as we see, this is a tuple. So we have successfully created our first tuple. So now that we have created tuple, let's see how can we extract individual elements from a tuple. So it's actually similar to the string. So in a tuple as well, the indexing starts with 0. So if you want to extract the first element in a tuple, you would have to give in 0 over here. So you will start with giving the name of the tuple, you will give in parenthesis, and then inside the parenthesis, you will give in the index value. So if you want the first element, you'll give in 0, and then you can extract the first element over here. Similarly, if you want to extract the last element, is the same as string again, you will give in -1. So the last element over here is false. So to extract false from this, I will give in the name of the tuple, which is tuple1, and inside parenthesis, I'll give in -1. Or similarly, if we want to extract a sequence of elements, we can use this colon operator over here, right? So tuple1, I want to extract all the elements which are A, true, and 2. So basically going from index number 1 until going till index number 4. Now I've given index number 4 because this is exclusive and this is inclusive, right? So let's go ahead and extract some individual elements. So we've got our tuple ready over here. Let me just print it out again, right? So this is our tuple. Now I want to extract the first element from this. I'll give in the parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis, I'll give in 0. So as you see, I have extracted the first element. Similarly, if I want to extract the second element, so the index for the second element would be equal to 1. So I'll type in 1, and I have extracted the second element as well. Now if I want to extract the last element, I'll type in tup1 and I'll pass in -1 over here. So I have extracted the last element, which is false. Now I'll go ahead and extract a sequence of elements. So I'll type in tup1 over here, and let's say I want to extract true, 2 and b. So for this the index would be 2. It starts at 2 and it goes on till 2, 3, 4, and since this is not inclusive, I'd have to give this, so it will be 5. So I have successfully extracted these 3 elements, which are true, 2 and b. And this is how we can extract individual elements from a tuple. Right. Now, as I've told you, a tuple is immutable. That means you cannot go ahead and change the values which are present in a tuple. So let's actually try doing that. So over here, I am trying to change the value which is present at index number 2, and I'm assigning it a value of hello. And when I try to do that, I get an error. So the error is tuple object does not support item assignment, and that is because tuples are immutable. So let's try this example out in Jupyter Notebook. So we've got this tuple over here. Just for our reference, I'll print it out. Right, so this is our tuple. Now again, I'll try to change this index value over here. So I'll try to change this from true to hello. So tup1, the index is 2 over here, and I'll try to store hello over there. Well, I get an error. Now let's say I actually want to add a new element inside this. So there are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, right? So the final index number is 5. Now let's say if I want to add a new element, so for that the index number would be 6. So I'll type in tup1 and I'll give in the index value to 6, and let me see if I can add a new element at the end of the elements. So I'll name this as, this is Sparta again. Well, I can't help it, this is my favorite movie, so, and also this is my favorite sentence of all time. Well, seems like even my favorite sentence can't get inside this tuple, right? So this is because tuple is immutable and you can't modify it. Now we'll go ahead and perform some basic operations with tuple. So let's say again, if you want to find out the length of a tuple, we'll use this len method, and this will give us the length of the tuple. Now after that, we can actually concatenate two tuples, or basically merge two tuples. So over here we've got tuple 1 and tuple 2. The values in tuple 1 are 1, 2 and 3, and the values in tup2 are 4, 5 and 6. And when you use the addition operator on these two tuples, you are actually concatenating them. And you, as you already know, you can't modify a tuple. So that is why when you do tup1 plus tup2, you'll not get 5, 7 and 9. What you are doing is you are attaching this tuple at the end of this tuple. Right, so let's work with these two examples in Jupyter Notebook. So again, I'll print out tup1 over here, and this is what we have. Now I will go ahead and find out the length of this. So len of tup1, and we see that the length of this is equal to 6. Now I'll create two more tuples over here. So this time the values which are stored in tup1 are a, and after this I'll store true, and then maybe I'll store a complex value, so 3 plus 5j. I'll also go ahead and create my second tuple tup2, and inside this I'll also store some values. So let's say I will store Sparta inside this, and I'll store a false value, and then I'll give a numeric value which is 5050. Right, so we've got tup1 and tup2 ready. Now I'll just type in tup1 plus tup2, and let's see what do we get. Right, so this is basically your concatenation of these two tuples. So since we have tup1 on the left side and tup2 on the right side, we've got these three elements first and these three elements followed by them. Now let me type in tup2 plus tup1, and let's see what is the difference. Right, so this time we've got the elements of tup2 first, and then they are followed by the elements of tup1. So the sequence of these two tuples matters when you are concatenating them, right? So whatever tuple you give on the left side of the plus operator, those elements of the tuple will come first. And whatever tuple you give on the right side of the plus operator, those elements will come on the second term. So this is how you can concatenate two tuples. So now we'll see how can we repeat the elements inside a tuple. So let's say we've got this tuple over here where the elements are, so we've got one string elements, parta, and then we've got a numeric element 300. Now all I want to do is repeat these elements for a number of times. Let's say if I want to repeat these elements 3 times, then all I have to do is multiply this tuple with 3, right? And that is how I can repeat these elements. Similarly, I can do repeating and concatenating in the same line of code. So what I'll do is I've got this tup1, I'll multiply it with 3. So when I multiply it with 3, then I'll get this tuple. So after that, I will add a new tuple to it. So I have tup2 over here where the elements are 4, 5 and 6. So to this, I am adding 4, 5 and 6. So repeating and concatenating is happening in the same tuple. Let's go to Jupyter Notebook and perform these operations. So now let me go ahead and create the tuple. So I'll type in tup1 and I'll give in the elements inside this. So let's say the first element is 1, the second element is true, and then I'll give in a decimal pointing data. So I will give it the number as 3.14, right? So my tuple is ready over here. So I'll just type in tup1 into 3. So when I do this, I see that this is my first set of the elements. So 1, true and 3.14. Then I've got the second set and also I've got the third set. So this is how I can repeat the elements which are present inside the tuple. Now I'll also create another tuple over here with the name tup2 and I'll add in the values. So the values would be A, B, and then I've also got C over here. So I've got these 3 elements inside this tuple. Now I want to concatenate this to the first tuple. So I'll type in tup1. And let's say this time I want to repeat the elements 5 times. So tup1 into 5 and then I will add the second tuple to it, which will be tup2. So this is what I get. So right, this is my first set over here, 1 true 3.14, right? And then I've got 1 true 3.14. So this goes on till 5 times. Now once the repetition is done, I am adding the second tuple or concatenating the second tuple at the back end of it. So I've got A, B and C over here. So this is how repetition and concatenation can be done. Now we'll work with some tuple functions. So let's say I have a tuple with some random set of numbers and I'd want to find out the minimum and the maximum values present in the tuple. So all you have to do is use the min and the max functions. So over here I've got this tuple where the elements inside it are 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And all I do is pass in this tuple inside the min function and we see that the minimum value is 1. Similarly, I'll pass in this tuple inside the max function and we see that the maximum value is 5. So let me create a tuple over here, tup1, and let me add in some random elements. So 67, 43, 1, 90, minus 45, and then I'll give 67. Well, we already have 67, so I'll type in 68 over here. Now let me find out which is the minimum value present in this tuple. So I'll use the min function and I'll pass in tup1 inside this. So see that minus 45 seems to be the minimum element which is present in this tuple. Now I also have to find out the maximum element which is present in this tuple. So I'll type in max of, I'll type in tup1 and we see that 90 is the maximum value. So this is how we can find out the minimum value and the maximum value. Now we'll head on to the second data structure, which is a list. So list is an ordered collection of elements enclosed within square braces. So the difference between a list and a tuple is tuples are immutable. That means that they cannot be changed or the values inside it cannot be modified once they are created. But when it comes to a list is mutable. That means that the values inside it can be modifiable as and when we want. So let's go ahead and work with this list. Now let me go ahead and create the list. I'll type in L1 over here and let me pass in the elements. So I'll type in a numeric element and then I'll type in Sparta because it's my favorite word, as you guys might have guessed till now. And then I'll give in a floating point number, which is 3.14, again my favorite floating point number. Then I'll give in a boolean value, which is true. And finally I'll give in a complex value, which would be 3 plus 5j. So this is our list over here, which is ready. Let me just print it out, L1. Now just to be sure this is actually a list, let me check the type of it. So I'll type in L1. So we see that this is a list. So we have successfully created our first list. Now let's see how can we extract individual elements from a list. Well, again, it's the same thing when we compare it with a tuple or a string. So the indexing starts with 0. So if you want to extract the first element present in the list, the index needs to be 0. If you want to extract the second element, the index needs to be 1. So over here, I want to extract the second element, which is A. So obviously the index would be 1. So over here, I am extracting the second element. Similarly, if I want to extract a sequence of elements, so over here, I want to extract these 3 elements. So for this, the index starts at 2 and it will go on till 5 because it will be 2, 3 and 4. And since 4 is actually exclusive, it will not be included. So we would have to also include 5. That is when we'll be able to extract 2, B and 3. So let's go ahead and extract some individual elements from our list. So let me just print in the list over here again. Alright, now I want to extract the last element. So I'll type in L1, I'll give in the parenthesis and I'll give in -1. So we have successfully extracted the last element. Now I want to extract these 3 elements, Sparta 3.14 and true. So again, the name of the list and the index starts at 1. So I'll go from 1, 2, 3 and 4. So let me just put in 4 over here. Right, so Sparta 3.14 and true. I have successfully extracted these elements. Now we'll see how can we modify a list. So as I've already told you, list is mutable. That means that you can go ahead and change the values which are present inside a list. So now our task would be to replace the value which is present at the 0th index. So over here, the value which is present at 0th index initially is 1. So I want to change it to 100. So I'll just give in the index number inside the parenthesis and then pass in the value 100, and we are successfully able to change this value. Now similarly, if you want to add an element at the end of a list, we can use this append method. So I'll type in L1.append and I am appending this new word Sparta into this. Or similarly, if I want to pop out the last element, we can use the pop method. So over here you see that C is the last element, and when I use the pop method on top of this list, I'm able to pop this element out. So we see that now once C is popped out, we've got 3 as the last element. Let's perform all of these in Jupyter Notebook. So this is what we have over here. So let me just type in L1 again. So as of now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 elements. So I want to change this value from 1 to 100. So that is present at index number 0. So L1 parenthesis index number 0, and I am assigning it a value of 100. Now let me print out L1 over here. So we see that we have changed this value from 1 to 100. Now similarly, I want to add an element at the end of this list. So for that, I would have to use the append method. So L1.append, and I will be appending hello world. I'll type in hello world and then let me print out L1 over here. Right, so I have added this element. Now I also want to pop out the new element which I've added. So all I have to do is type in L1.pop and then I'll print L1 again. Let me put the bracket over here. Right, so as you see, we had added this hello world, and also with the help of this pop method, we were able to pop this out. Now we'll work with some more functions. So we'll see how to reverse a list, how to insert an element at a specified index, and also how to sort a list. So to reverse the elements of a list, we've got this reverse method. So all we have to do is use the dot operator and invoke this reverse method. So here you see that it starts as 1, A, 2, B, 3 and C, and once the list is reversed, you get this result. So you got C, 3, B, 2, A1. So this is reversed, and then we get this. Now after reversing the elements of a list, let's say we want to add an element at a specified index. So over here, I want to add this element Sparta at index number 1. So initially at index number 1, the element was A. Now instead of that, I want to add Sparta. So I'll use the insert method. This takes in 2 parameters. First parameter is the index that we want to insert the element. Second is the element itself. So again, I'm printing it out. We see that we have inserted Sparta over here, and the rest of the elements, so their index has been incremented with 1. So this was at index number 1. Now it has shifted to index number 2. This was at index number 2. This has shifted to index number 3. This is what happens when you insert an element at a specified index. Then we'll see how to sort a list. So all you have to do is use the sort method. So we'll use L1 and then we'll type in L1.sort. So we see that all of these elements have been sorted in alphabetical order. So apple, banana, guava, and mango. So let me print out L1 over here. So this is our list. Now I'd have to reverse this. So I'll type in L1 dot reverse. I'll hit enter. Now let me print L1. So right, this was the initial list over here, and after invoking the reverse method on top of this list, we see that the list has been reversed. Now we'll see how to sort a list. So I will create a new list over here. So L1, and I'll put in square braces. Let me add in some random words over here. So first word would be at, second word would be lion, then we've got maybe king, after that we've got ball, and then we've got all, right? So this is our list over here. Now let me go ahead and sort this. So I'll type in L1 dot sort. Let me also print in L1 over here. So this is our sorted list. So all, at, ball, king, and lion, right? So this is in sorted order. Now we'll see how can we add a new element at a specified index. So let's say I want to add a new element at the 0th index. So I'll just type in L1 and then I will add. So this will be insert. So let me type in insert over here, and I want to insert an element at index number 0, and the element which I want to insert is Sparta again. I have clicked on run. Now let me again print out L1. Right, so I have successfully inserted Sparta over here, and as you see, the index for all of the rest of the elements has been incremented with respect to 1. Now let's see how can we concatenate two lists and repeat the elements of a list. So it's the same thing again. So let's say we've got L1 and L2 over here, and if I want to concatenate these two lists, I'll just add the plus operator between these two. So I've got 1, 2, 3 over here, and then I concatenate it with A, B, and C. Similarly, if I have to repeat the elements of a list, all I have to do is multiply it with a number. So I'm multiplying it with 3. So when I multiply it with 3, I have this repeated 3 times. Now let me create my list over here. So L1 equals, I'll just give in some sequence of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now I'd have to create another list L2, and the numbers in this would be 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So we've got our two lists ready over here. Now I'll just type in L1 plus L2. So I've got this final list, right? So I have concatenated L2 with L1. Now let me see what happens if I type L2 plus L1 instead of L1 plus L2. So as you see, I have the elements of L2 first, followed by elements of L1. Right, now I want to go ahead and repeat the elements inside a list. So I want to repeat the elements of the list L1. So I'll type in L1 into 5. So this is what I have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First set, second, third, fourth, and then I've got my fifth set over here. Right, now this is how we can work with the basic operations of a list.